Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining from. Um, a very warm welcome to all of you in this edition of our webinar. And let me get started. Let me make sure that I'm audible. So today's session is accelerating value with responsible AI agents in project management. Somebody needs to go on mute. I'm able to hear my own echo. Just make sure everybody's on mute while I'm talking, so or others are talking. Okay, so sorry about that. Accelerating value with responsible AI agents in project management is sponsored by Nimble Work, where our mission is to humanize work. Let's get started. I can see a whole bunch of people joining. I'm going to go ahead and get started with some of the preliminary housekeeping and stuff. So the agenda today is to start with some introductions, a quick word about Nimble Work, the sponsor for this webinar, and then we'll get on to the main session, accelerating value with responsible AI agents in project management. And at the end, I hope that we will have a spirited discussion, a Q&A session, where we'll get to hear more from what you are all doing in the field of AI in your workplace, in your project management environment, in your work management environment. And we hope that this is going to be a very enlightening session for all of us, especially for us who we learn from our customers all the time. And so we're really looking forward to what we hear in this webinar as well. Some housekeeping as usual. We are recording the session and we will make the recording available after the webinar is done. Please feel free to enter any questions you have using the Q&A panel. And we'll also ask a few questions during the webinar. And so yeah, if you can use your chat to respond to some of those questions, that'd be also great. And of course, we'll take the questions at the end of the session. All right. So with that, let me introduce to you the speakers today, or the guests on this panel. This is slightly different from our usual webinars. We are essentially going to be, talking to you about our journey with AI and our, learnings during the last 7 to 8 years, during which we have been working with AI in a variety of different ways, both for working to introduce those features in our products, but also understanding what that means for our customers who are sometimes very, very large enterprises, worldwide global enterprises, and sometimes very small companies. And we have been sort of on this journey, learning about what these customers, look at AI in what perspective and how they would respond to some of the things that we are doing in the field of AI. So with me today are four others. Sudipta Lairi is our head of product. He is well known in the conference circuit and speaks very widely on lean and agile topics and other topics, I'm sure. I have Mano, who heads our business development and has been my partner in crime in many of these webinars that we do. Probably the expert par none as far as our product portfolio is concerned. Ram is my co-founder and head sales for all of the Western Hemisphere. Ram will be joining us a little bit later. He got called by one of his customers and has had to take the call, but I'm looking forward to his joining back. And Raghu heads our business for the Eastern Hemisphere. I'm going to say Raghu for you. And I'm myself a co-founder and I run marketing for Nimblework. And we are all very excited to be part of this panel to really share our journey with you. Before I go down into the main session, just a quick look at who we are for those of you who may not be very familiar with us. So we've been a pioneer in web-based tooling for work management, project management, application lifecycle management for over 20 years now. And we have a global customer base, over 1 million plus users around the world. Our offices are in the United States and in India and in UK. We are headquartered here in Cupertino, California, and if you need to learn more about us, I invite you to look at our website at nimblework.com. Just a quick look at what we provide. So we, as you can see, have a fairly extensive set of capabilities for helping you manage your work, whether it is in the context of marketing, HR, sales, finance, or it is for strategy and execution of different environments, or it is IT and product development. We have an amazing set of capabilities that we provide, including helping you to run your business or projects using either traditional or agile methods. We have, as you can see, everything from enabling your strategy to linking it to execution and letting you really get enterprise-wide visibility to what you do. So again, you can learn about some of these products on our website. Um, and just finally, a quick look at who some of our customers are. And again, we're very proud of our customers. We win business against them we win business from them against some of the largest competition in the world, and it is because of the sort of loyalty our customers have shown us, the kind of things they value about us, and of course some of the capabilities that we provide, both in terms of our products as well as our ability to help our customers implement their solutions that they're looking for. So you can see we have some very large customers. We have some very small customers as well. So we really have the capability to run enterprise-wide solutions down to even team level products and solutions. All right. So with that, I'm going to open up the floor to get to our main session, which is accelerating value with responsible AI agents in project management. So Sudhi, Mano, Raghu, very warm welcome to you. Lindsay is helping me on the Q&A, and she's here as well. And Bhaskar is also here to run anything which is on the operations side for this webinar. So really glad to have all of you here. Hope you're all feeling charged and motivated to participate in this webinar. I know it's a little bit late in the night in India for many of you, but let's get started. So I thought let's begin with a sort of quick look at where how we arrived at this moment, or what has been our journey. So first, let's look at AI itself. How has AI evolved over the last 3 to 5 years, especially in the last 3 to 5 years, and in the context of knowledge work, what have been some of the key areas in which AI has been experimented with? What are some of the things that we have tried, in the in the industry and technology have? What have been the developments there? So let's start with that. Maybe Raghu, you can take that on and give us some. We come with a long history of technology and use of AI and early avatars of AI. So what is your perspective on how things have come to this stage?
Yeah, thanks, Mahesh, and warm welcome to all of you. So what I would like to do is kind of take a step back and give a quick history rundown of, how we arrived, where we arrived today in AI, and like any other discovery or innovation or technological advance, I think it's built upon contributions from various people over various years. And if you kind of trace back the history of AI, they go in 3 or 4 main periods, and it's been a journey of highs and lows, as you would call it. So most of the people kind of agree that the seminal thing that got this started was the Alan Turing paper, which said computing, machinery, and thinking, which started off in the first sentence saying, "Can machines think?" And that, I think, caught fire really in the 50s and 60s. So this was a paper in 1950. So all the innovators that were coming in the 50s, 60s, and 70s kind of took that and actually started building on top of it. The actual word AI got coined by John McCarthy in what was called as the Dartmouth workshop. So he was a professor in the Dartmouth College, and he, along with a few others, namely Mervyn Minsky and a few others, called for a conference, which was almost like a 6-week brainstorming session. And this kind of laid the foundation of AI. And it was in the call to that conference that AI as a word got coined. All the people here were mathematicians and computer scientists, and actually went on to be pivotal figures in the AI world. For example, John McCarthy himself was the originator of this language called Lisp, which was the main language that was used in the 50s, 60s, and 70s for artificial intelligence. He also went on to Stanford and formed the Stanford AI lab, which then contributed a lot in expert systems and so on and so forth. And then Mervyn Minsky, for example, started the AI lab at MIT, where our own CTO Ramesh Patil also worked under under him and in the MIT AI lab. So the 50s, 60s were really the gung-ho years, and somewhere in the mid 60s, a professor in the MIT AI lab called Joseph Weizenbaum actually worked on a project called ELIZA, which essentially what it did was try to create a pattern making technique which would mimic a psychotherapist. So today, if you kind of see a lot of the Siri, Alexa, and even Chat GPT can, you know, trace their origin to ELISA, which was a mid 50s discovery by the MIT AI lab. So after the gung-ho years, I think there was a hype in the in the sector, and it kind of went through a downward spiral in the 70s, and they call this the AI winter. Slowly in the 80s, in the Stanford AI lab, the expert system started to originate. And expert system essentially had a knowledge database, which had some inferences, which were essentially rule-based, and you had a UI to kind of probe it for various questions. And this started taking shape in essentially scientific and other fields which involved a lot of thinking and predictions and so on and so forth. So, for example, one of the first usages that came out of the Stanford lab was something called Dendral, which was in the area of organic chemistry, which tried to predict some organic molecules which were not discovered by using AI techniques and expert system techniques. But expert systems had a limitation themselves. Essentially, they were still rule-based in some sense. And to overcome that, if somebody had to really make it more efficient, there would have to be a lot of rules. So there was an explosion of rules. So that kind of was untenable. And also, it was focused on a narrow area of expertise. So it couldn't deal with a wider area. It couldn't deal with uncertainty, and had very limited usage per se. So somewhere in the 80s, mid 80s, Geoffrey Hinton and a few of his colleagues actually started to work on neural networks as it applied to computing, and basically changed this whole limitation that we had for rule-based to what was data-based learning. And that led to various techniques where you try to have things like supervised learning, which was essentially you tagged things for learning, unsupervised learning, where you had untagged items, reinforced learning, and so on and so forth, which essentially helped you to create features and kind of way features which were done manually. Now, Geoffrey Hinton and the team also went ahead and kind of got into the next innovation there by working at deep learning. And what deep learning essentially did was had the ability to kind of make these features, extraction and fine tuning and so on and so forth, automatic. But what it then required was a lot of data and a lot of compute power. So this happened in the 80s, but because of this limitation of essentially needing a lot of data and a lot of compute power, which was very expensive, it kind of again went through a winter in the 90s. And then coincidentally, what happened was we started off the web revolution. There was a lot of data getting collected. The data was not being used, but a lot of data was getting collected. And compute prices started to go down, and it also started to see advent of GPUs and higher compute power. So the limitation of both the data availability as well as the fact that compute was not available kind of got resolved in the 2000s. And by mid of 2000s, I think AI became serious because there was a lot of data available, compute was available, which was cheap, and you could really scale compute and so on and so forth. One version of deep learning was essentially called transformers, which is the technology that is now used in all the modern chat GPTs and what you have from there on in the last few years, where you are looking at both generative AIs as well as agentic based flows and so on and so forth. So that's kind of a quick rundown. I think I took a few minutes more than what you required, Mahesh, but nonetheless, I just laid down the whole thing for you.
Yeah, no, that is very impressive. The complete sort of history of the evolution of this entire technology base. So let's quickly then come to where we have been in the last maybe 6 or 7 years, and of course all the way up to 2025. Our journey started back in 2018. I remember when we launched our first predictive engine for Swift Enterprise, as we used to call it at that time. And I know that we worked with some of our largest customers for the very large data sets that they had using our products. And we had some interesting and some maybe mixed results during that time. Suri, you want to talk a little bit about the kind of initial work we did with AI? And Raghu, I know Raghu and Mano, you both worked with our customers extensively. So maybe Suri, you can take on first, and then Mano and Suri, you can add on how our journey has been, at least in the last few years. Suri, you're on mute.
Thanks, Mahesh. I hope you don't get an echo from my end. So yes, when we started our AI journey, it was, frankly speaking, a steep learning curve for us, and it took us about a good 9 months to a year to actually really become comfortable with the technology available at that point of time. And I think most of you on the call would perhaps remember that the skill sets that this technology needed would come at a very steep premium at that point of time. So we managed to assemble a team, and most of it was moving into a phase of deep learning, neural networks, etc. So we were in that cycle of trying to build, trying to understand all the different factors that can go towards predicting a project's outcome, whether it is on the dimension of scope, cost, quality, time. We ran n number of parameters that we could assess on a project to try and understand which levers would create what impact, so that we could, the thought process was being able to actually get back to a customer and tell them that if you change this dimension from X to Y, this is the output impact that you would get. But what we soon learned was when we took beyond the training data set in our labs to our actual customer field, that we would really run into this challenge of how to train the model on the customer data set, given that the customer data set often was very dirty. And so we went through a fairly elaborative timeline at each of our customer sites, going through that cycle. And I would say it kind of did stretch on their patience a bit to be able to apply these models and see these outcomes, and then say, okay, there is a good value proposition out here. Raghu, Mano, please do extend what some of your...
Yeah, just to add on to what you said, Sudipta. So I think we were in a good position because we were a system of record primarily. We collected a lot of data which was pertaining to project management, and so on and so forth. And what our vision was to kind of take some of the system of record thing and change to a system of intelligence. That is how we kind of coined it in 2017-18. One of the main problems that we were facing at that point of time was a lot of predictions that were happening because of these neural networks and deep learning and so on and so forth was really a black box. So people didn't know how these results came, and hence didn't know whether these were credible or not credible. And so one of the things that we coined at that point of time was things like was saying that we will come out with explainable AI. We coined it as XAI. That's how we came out with the whole thing. And our whole point of view there was in project management, you have this holy grail of trying to save a project from getting into trouble. And till then, essentially it was like a rear view mirror, right? I mean, you kind of did it as a post facto and so on and so forth. Can we change from a rear view mirror to something like a working navigator GPS? That was essentially our vision to them. And as Sudipta said, we were trying to forecast and predict on the three typical parameters of schedule, quality, and cost. Obviously, we didn't get the cost data, but we got schedule and quality data. So we said, okay, let's narrow down on schedule and quality. And we essentially did 5 things. The 5 things were essentially identify what the problem is. Secondly, quantify the problem. So say, is it a big issue or a small issue? Thirdly, predict when it's likely to happen and so on. Is it likely to happen now or later or whatever the case may be. Fourth, have remedial, suggestions that are given. And fifth, and most importantly, probably have a human in the loop, because again, you are given a set of reasons, so you're making it explainable, but the suggestion which is given by the system might not be implementable. So we wanted to give a what if analysis kind of a scenario to the human project manager who was taking the decision. So what that led us was essentially creating a large amount of data lake with a lot of data engineering, where we went and cleaned the data, imputed the data, created pipelines, did feature engineering. We went from 153 parameters and variables to by feature engineering and so on and so forth, brought it down to about 15 variables. We use things like hyperparameter tuning and so on and so forth, and created this entire solution for them. Now, what we realized was it's not very easy to get good data, and most of data was not really reliable. And to that extent, these predictions were giving accuracy wherever data was reliable. But one of the things that we also did at that point of time was, because we had the data engineered available, we also gave some kind of a bot capability where you could generally do some queries and get some intelligence, or get some responses out of it. And that kind of became the pivot for our journey in terms of getting into other values that we created in our product, both in terms of using recommendation engines to do similarity, so similar items, similar work items, as well as autofill, and also use the entire bot capability along with Gen AI, which probably Sudhi can expand on.
Yeah, perfect. I think that really brings us to the present. And so, Sudhi, I guess we can talk about how things are today. Obviously, the launch of ChatGPT in late 2023, I think, upended everything that had been happening in the world of AI, till then. And of course, we also scrambled to respond to that and understand what we could do with it, etc. So, what has been our response so far? And now, with the launch of 8.0, what have we done so far? What is our roadmap? Let's talk a little bit about that. And Mano, after that, I'm going to tee you up for giving everyone a quick look at what we have done with our 8.0 release. But Sudhi, first to you. Oh, and Sudhi, before you start, apologies. Before you start, a quick note to the audience, just to help the discussion and to understand what else is happening in your world out there. If you could, and I've got some very interesting comments and some questions on this already, but would like to get your inputs. Just feel free to use the chat capability to give us some examples of what are some of the things that you're doing in your area in terms of AI. What are some of the specific tools you're implementing? Anything, any comments that you have? Would love to hear from you in the comment box. Thanks. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
So before we, in that world that Raghu just explained, we were fairly uh, good with deep learning, neural networks, NLP, things like that. We already had intelligent bots where you could actually phrase a question to the bot and the bot would give you a response back, a fairly intelligent response back in terms of what you were wanting to do. You could just say, report 8 hours on my work, and it would actually go and update 8 hours to the work item that you are assigned on. You could say, tell me what all are on my plate, and it would go back, search, and then serve you back. So we were at that level when suddenly the OpenAI storm came in. And the beauty of the OpenAI storm, I think, is mainly that it really democratized the access to the AI world to everybody. No longer were we really looking at a super that whole challenge of creating a model, data, training, data set. That whole thing was completely in one shot, in one master stroke, was completely marginalized. So what it got us thinking immediately was, okay, now that we already have a good background and a good pedigree, and we know what the technology works and how it works inside, and now that OpenAI has made this kind of a generative AI model accessible to us, where do we go from there? So in September 2023, Nimble 6.0 was released, and that was the first version where we rolled out our integration with essentially ChatGPT. But if you really think about what it was doing, ChatGPT is essentially a monolith model, right? It has been trained on years and years of data, and it is only good as the data it has been trained on. So you could go to the Nimble coach and you could say, this is my problem and this is my situation. These are my problems. What should I do now? And Nimble coach will go ahead and give you a response back in terms of what are some of the things that you could do. So it became a very good kind of a coach or a buddy to any project manager or anybody who's delivering work. And it was intelligent enough to understand your persona, the kind of project that you are working on. We kind of fed it with that background information so that at least there is that level of contextualization to the response that ChatGPT was feeding back to the end user. While this happened, about 6 to 9 months, it's been about 6 to 9 months that we started seeing the shift from these monolithic models into what the term was coined as a compound AI systems, which was nothing but kind of building a small system using LLM as a piece to solve the puzzle, right? So let's say if I take an example in project management, if you were to just ask a ChatGPT, what are the risks to my project? And if you just give it, a little bit of information about a project description, etc., it will suggest some risks, right? It will not give you a blank, but it will definitely give you a certain number of risks. But now if you go ahead and give it a lot more information by querying the database and kind of searching and understanding what are the milestones that have been missed, what are some of the critical risks, critical issues that you already have in your database, then you can now feed it to your LLM model to be able to give you a far greater and a far more authentic contextual response on what are the real risks and challenges that you have in your project right now and that you need to mitigate, right? So essentially what these compound AI systems started doing was to not just be dependent only on the LLM model, but surrounded with a whole bunch of small queries, searching, database information. Take that information, feed it into the LLM, and then be able to respond to the end user's query. Right? These systems started being called as RAG systems, retrieval augmented generation systems, and it took us a while. It took us about 4 to 5 months that we started rolling out these RAG agents, AI agents, which are essentially nothing but RAG agents. And Nimble A.O, we have rolled out now a whole bunch of RAG agents that can really expedite what you are going to do and how you are, what is the value that you can build out of your out of using Gen AI in the project management space. But let's go a little beyond that, right? So if I know that your use case is that you are doing a software development project, you want to generate test cases. Now, if I know that much, then I can definitely say, okay, here's the user story, here's a little bit of the user story description. And so I can now ask LLM to generate a whole bunch of test cases, and in today's world, even actually generate the test case code. And it will be damn accurate, right? It will almost be 80-90% accurate in being able to generate your unit automation or your service level test layer right there based on this information that you feed it. But let's say I do not have that information. Let's say somebody says, on my project, a customer comes in and he starts building, starts tracking work on his site installation. He is launching a whole bunch of restaurants across the country, and he wants to track that work, and he wants to manage that work on Nimble. So at that point of time, Nimble does not really have any understanding, pre-understanding about what this customer is doing. It doesn't understand his domain. It doesn't understand the work that it's going to do. As tasks get filled in, as work items get added in that project, it can perhaps try and get some sense that, okay, this might be the thing that this account is trying to do, but it has no such pre-trained, preconceived understanding about what that customer's domain is and what that guy's nature of work is. So what agentic AI systems are trying to do is to use LLM in terms of trying to figure out this problem itself. So if I already knew what the use case was, I could have a control logic that could pull out the information and then feed it to LLM. But in the case that I do not have that information, or I don't have any basis to figure that out ahead of time, in that case, now I can use LLM itself to be able to try and figure out, okay, this user wants an executive summary for this project. Let's start breaking it into smaller sets. Let's understand what kind of data it has. And it will then iteratively pull out information, go ahead and generate and use LLM again to be able to generate what is, what is the summary information that needs to be presented, decide whether that is good enough or adequate or not, and do this in an iterative fashion. So needless to say, compared to the RAG agents that we were all building, or that we are building now, and we see a fairly high pace of proliferation out there, agentic AI systems will be a little slower, will take time. I'm not saying slower in terms of development, but slower in terms of execution, because it's not a pointed solution. It is trying to figure out in the process what is the most appropriate response to the user query that I've been asked for. So if you were to think about, let's say, if I will expand it into a use case scenario, if I have to generate an executive summary or a project status report, for a template or for a domain that I'm familiar with, a RAG agent would be a great idea. But a project summary report for a domain that I have no idea about, I would land up using an agentic AI approach where I use LLM itself to keep iterating on the prompt that would then generate the final response itself. So we are in that life cycle right now. We are rolling out agents that are a combination of both these approaches. And we believe that we would like to be very responsible in trying to understand in what use cases we want to really leverage AI. What I mean by responsible is we obviously all understand AI is an expensive proposition, despite DeepSeek coming into the mix and making it significantly cheaper than what it used to be, but it is still a costly proposition. It takes money to run your LLMs depending upon the number of tokens that you throw at it. It costs energy to be able to run those efficiently. So what we want to do is we want to be very clear about where we want AI to be able to bring the value proposition back to the user. We want to choose use cases where the productivity and efficiency gain is in terms of hours and not in terms of minutes, right? Where the use case will serve 80, 90% of the user base and not just 5% of the user base. And we want to kind of make an impact by communicating back to the user a sensitivity to how much they have consumed in terms of energy. Because at the end of the day, we're all paying for it, whether it is in terms of electricity, whether it is in terms of water, but we are all paying for it pretty dearly. So we want to try and communicate that you got this value. For this value, kind of consume this level of planet resources to be able to get that value back. And so the user then slowly starts becoming sensitive to, okay, it's great fun, new tool and new toy, but it comes at a price. So that's our definition of responsible AI. Identify and choose where you really want to make it available and make users aware of what is the price at which that value is coming back. So that's the direction that we're headed to, Mahesh.
Yeah, good, Mahesh.
Let me make sure that I'm unmuted here. So yeah, so folks, you have an idea of where we are today and where we are headed, and the general technology direction. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask those in the Q&A box. But let us now quickly show you what we have done in our 8.0 release. And Mano, I'm going to turn to you for giving us a quick glimpse of some of the things that we have, cool things that we have launched with our 8.0 release. I'm going to stop sharing, and you can go ahead and share your screen.
You are able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you, Raghu and Sudhi, for setting up the context for this session very clearly and crisply. Like so, as mentioned by Sudhi, we have in our 8.0 release released few agentic AI. Now, if you go to our website, you will see that one of the core themes of our organization is to humanize work. And the first set of capabilities which we have released is primarily impacting the end users who are working on projects, who have been given tasks, who have a deadline to meet. So what we have done is we have designed intelligent features and capabilities that will basically help them to plan, execute, and manage their work quite well. Now, as part of 8.0 release, we introduced 6 capabilities from an agentic AI perspective. And you can basically put them under 2 buckets. The first bucket is the capability that addresses general project work. There are a lot of project work and transactions which typically requires a lot of effort from the project management team or from the end users. And we have brought in some capabilities which will basically accurately and in a far more meaningful manner help team members in executing their activities with less effort, and basically help them to focus on more creative tasks and activities. So the 3 capabilities that we have introduced for general project work is smart description, conversation summary, and generate subtasks or to-dos of various activities that you need to perform. So just to highlight that, let me take you quickly to our system. So this is a page where a project manager or a team member can set up their tasks and activities. They can assign it to themselves. They can assign it to their teams. Now, when you're defining the scope of work, you can basically give it a brief description. So, say for example, you have to create a capability where for an e-commerce website, you have to create a web capability where you're able to throw in some recommendations to the end user based on the nature of product he's searching for. So just on the basis of the name of the task and activity, so we have the agent over here, Nibble Buddy. You can just click, and then it basically generates automatically the description of that particular task. Now, like Sudhi said, when you're working on this model, probably the first time you may have not got the right description, so you can iterate it multiple times and reach to a point where it is close to what you're looking at. And then if you want to further edit it, you can edit it, or you can also go and refine it. Like say, for example, you can set a different tone. You can either shorten the description or just go with a summarization on the description, or you can even format it. Now, once the formatting has been done, you basically have the description of the task which you want to work on provided by this application. But then there is one problem over here. The problem is I have just given, the system has given me something which is very generic in nature. Whereas the context in which I'm working is so I can just go and specify it saying that the context is for e-commerce website selling automotive components. Okay, so I can set the context. So I get the description from the agentic AI, and then I can go and set the context, and then it will look into the description which it has already been generated. Just give me a minute. Just enter yeah, just give me a minute.
It looks
So
like
you
there
can
is
see that, yeah, you can see that it has got generated based on the context which I have set. And then if I'm fine with this description, so you can see the reliability from trusted manufacturers, payment options. So these are all based on the context in which I wanted it. And if I'm fine with this description, then I can basically go and get it pasted to the description field that we have in the task definition screen. And then if all is fine, if you want to further edit it, you can edit it. If all is fine, you can just go and commit saying that, okay, this is the description I'm going ahead with. Now, the second capability that we have brought in is conversation summary. So just let's go back to this list view, and you're able to see that there are two tasks over here. So you may be a project manager or a manager of a team, and you'll see that your team is having two tasks where for one task, the due date is tomorrow. You get an indicator over here, and the other one, the due date has been completed. And you want to have a quick view on what has happened on this task and why it has got delayed. Then we provide an ability where, along with the task definition, you will be able to capture all the conversation that happened while the team was working on that specific task. So you'll be able to see all the technical and the design related conversation is captured over here within the application. Now, it is going to take a lot of time to go through this to understand the context. So as a manager, what you can do is you can ask the AI to look at the conversation and the collaboration that happened within the team and to give you a summary on what is actually happening in this particular work item and why it is getting delayed. So you can see here that the clarity that the history table records depend on version creation in the UI. So you are basically able to see get a summary from a perspective of the conversation and also some of the the design features that were considered or the design approach that were considered in the conversation. So you get a good conversation summary which is fairly accurate, and this will then help you to take the next step of action to make sure that you are able to bring that specific transaction record, bring that specific transaction back on track. Now I'll quickly move on to the third use case, that is to generate to-do. So yes, here we have defined a scope that the team needs to work on. You have got the details of the scope which the team needs to work on. So now the next step is, how do I break this up to smaller tasks so that I can plan my work well and get this specific work item assigned to the right resources? So one way to do that is just go through the details and then individually set up tasks and get them assigned to team members who need to work on it. That is one way of doing it. The second one is we can ask the agent to read the title and the description and generate a set of to-dos. And again, this can be an iterative process. If you want to modify, you can modify. Now you have got a lot of to-dos over here. Now if you want to just choose few of them, you can work with it collaboratively with your team and with the system, and then decide which are the tasks that you want to consider and get it assigned to the relevant stakeholder for its execution. So what we have basically done over here is just with the description or the title that has been given to a task, the name that has been given to a task, and like Sudhi said, it is not dependent on any domain. It can be applicable for any type of domain and any type of use cases. As long as you give the name and the title, the application has the ability through its integration to generate the description, generate the tasks, and also generate a summary on the collaboration that happened on a specific work item. Now I'll quickly switch to the next three sets. So they basically focus, we have three use cases that basically focus on the challenges for product and technology teams. A lot of time they need to spend a lot of time to create the BDD scenarios or the acceptance criteria or the test cases. So how can you make sure that those teams are benefited, and also it is not just generating, but also to make sure that whatever is getting generated is accurate, and it also leads to the ultimate end objective that you are able to deliver a high quality product and thus deliver value to your customers. So on this we have three use cases. Now the first one is, yes, you have a title, you have the description of the work item. Now I'm going to start my development. Now what are the criteria that I need to make sure as a team who's going to work on this needs to be met to make sure that I'm able to deliver value to the customer. So again, you can manually go and record them, but then we also provide you an assistance over here where based on whatever details has been captured for that specific task, you will be able to get a set of acceptance criteria. And again, like Sudhi said, you can make it iterative, you can copy it, you can refine it, you can bring down the tone or to shorten it or lengthen it. So a lot of such capability is there. And let me just go and say that this is good enough, and I can go and accept it. So within the same form, you will now be able to see that all the description and the acceptance criteria has been defined. Now let us say that this work item goes through a workflow. So you have the initial team, which is your customer, your business analyst, who have documented the details of the task, who have defined the criteria under which the task is going to get accepted. Now it goes to the people who are actually going to work on that specific task. So here I've taken the example of a technology team. So what the technology team will first do is they will create the BDD scenarios, that is behavior-driven development scenarios. So the system will then understand the context based on the description that has been given for that particular work item, And based on that context, it will go and create a set of BDD scenarios, which again can be iterated. It can be finalized in an iterative approach. You will be able to modify it. You'll be able to choose the scenarios which is specifically applicable in the context of the work that you're currently doing. I can just go and select all of them and then get them saved in the context of work. So you can see here by just click of a button, and maybe through you interacting with the system and modifying some of these definitions the way you want it, you have got the BDD scenarios generated in the application. Now that you have the BDD generation, BDD scenarios, the next important step in any life cycle is you have the description, you have the context in which it is going to be accepted, you have the scenarios which is going to be factored by the technical team to start their development work. And then based on that, now you can also build the test cases that needs to be generated. It can be manually generated, but the test cases that can be generated again in an iterative manner with the ability to modify it to suit your specific team's requirement. Now, if you look at the test case, it is just not giving you a sentence or it is not giving you a description. It is laying it out in a structured manner. So you have the preconditions, you have the tests, you have the test data, you have the expected results, the post conditions. So you will be able to see all the test cases based on these parameters, which is going to be meaningful for the teams, automatically getting generated from the system. You can iterate on it, and then it basically gets pasted against the work item. So what it does is you have one work item as and all the data that is required to work on that work item in no matter what level of detail that you would require, you will basically be able to generate it and set it up in the system. So that is a quick overview on what we have done in the 8.0 release. And like Sudhi mentioned, our journey is not stopping here. It will continue. So you will be hearing a lot of updates from us in the coming future on new capabilities, which we have launched, again, keeping in mind how it will help the teams to perform well, how it will help teams to reduce their manual effort, eliminate inefficiency, enhance collaboration, and what is more important for the business is to deliver better quality and value. Before I pass it on to you, Mahesh, I'm just going to take one more minute of the time. So we, like Sudipta mentioned, we started embarking on this, and Raghu mentioned we started embarking on this journey way back in 2018. We had the predictive model which we built. We got a lot of lessons from there, and way back, I think in 2022 or 2023, we started launching AI capabilities within our platform. Now, one of the capability which I quickly want to highlight to you is, so you are able to see this is my team's task board. Now there is a task over here, which is, let us say, it is a complex task. And while you have captured all the details, the descriptions, and the data that is necessary to work on that particular task, you will see that it also will generate an option. It gives you an option where the system tells you, in the past, you have some teams who have worked on something similar. So which means there is a knowledge that is existing within the organization on a similar work item that has been worked upon by a completely different team. Now, what you can do is you can just click and take a look at these similar work items. It shows you, it can be within the context of the same project, same team, different project, different team. You can get into the details and you will be able to see how they worked on that particular work item. What were the descriptions? What were the details that was used? What were the documents that were referred? What were the test cases that were referred? The acceptance criteria that were referred? So you can basically get a quick insight on, as my team worked on something similar in the past, and take that insight and put it in the context of your current task, and that will bring down a lot of time. And it is very helpful, especially in cases when you have onboarded new team members to a particular team or to your organization. So it is impossible for them to go back to all the projects that has been executed by the organization and try to understand what has happened. But the system will give you an assistance in terms of it will identify similar work items, and then you can use that learning in the context of your work currently. We also have, this is going to be my last one, have a capability where, let us say that I'm going to create a new task. Now I have a history of work which my team has worked on. So I'm going to create a new task. Now, if I look at the form which has been set up to define the task, you'll see that there are a lot of fields that is available over here. Typically, what happens is the end user may just give a title and a description, a brief description, and forget or not fill these details, which is basically very important and useful from an analytics perspective. So I can just give a description saying that activity log UI to be enhanced. And I'll just copy this over here in the description field. And let me just come out. So the moment I've come out, you will see that some of the fields in the system gets automatically populated. The values get automatically populated. So we have a capability in the application where you will be able to say some of these data fields should be mandated to be filled by a team member, and some of it can be automatically updated by the system based on AI recommendation engine, which we have built into the application. And then you can change it. It goes in for learning if it has to be changed. So all of that information, so including what is my story point estimate? It's a 20 story point estimate. It looks like a roadmap item. It is a UI improvement feature. Now, if I just look down over here, there are a lot of other values available over here, but the AI engine went and picked up the right one. So it basically facilitates, eases the way in which data can be captured. It also ensures that there is a complete data capture for all task elements that has been identified in the system. And if you have this in place, now one of the problems which Raghu mentioned, which we faced earlier when we embarked on the AI journey, is to get clean, clear, complete data. So data was either not clean or data was not complete. But this will basically address the problem of ensuring that you have complete data, and you can then leverage this data for for helping your teams further. So Mahesh, that's a quick overview. I know I've overshot the time, but that's a quick overview on the capabilities that we have.
I can always rely on you to get carried away and show all of the great stuff that we're doing, but perfectly excusable. Folks, I know we are a little bit over time and we have just got a couple of minutes. So I just want to address a bunch of questions that came around two main themes. One, Mano and Raghu, probably you can address. Is firstly, is all of the features that we're talking about, are they already available for people to try out in our trial in our production environment, and can they immediately sort of sign up and try some of these capabilities?
Yes, all these features are all available in the system and they can all be tried.
Fantastic. And the second thing, of course, is a couple of people asked the question, what about pricing? Is this something that we are going to provide a separate pricing on, or this is part of the overall set of things that we have included in the pricing?
So pricing is something that we'll come back to you with, primarily because this obviously uses the tokens on ChatGPT. The engine that is LLM that is being used here is ChatGPT. So obviously we are tokenizing it. So there will be a different charge for it. But for now, I think we are still keeping it open for people and no additional costs.
Great, great. There was a question on integrations. Mano, perhaps you can address it. Is this integrated with Jira and Confluence? I know
We
that
have
we
have the ability to integrate with Jira and Confluence. I could have shown it to you. We have adapters available, which can be used for connecting with multiple tools.
right.
We have REST APIs exposed. We have webhooks exposed. So there are multiple ways in which you will be able to connect with such tools.
Yeah, and just to kind of extend on that answer, we have sort of multiple integration options, and therefore through that we integrate with probably I would say literally thousands of these tools that are being used in the workplace, whether it is on the products development side or general collaboration and project management side. Um, there was one question earlier, which was about where do we go from here now, and I think the question was sort of answered throughout the overall webinar in terms of how we are looking at agentic AI workflows, or what we're doing in terms of building it into the context of the way our customers use it, and being responsible about how we prioritize these use cases so that it impacts and benefits the most number of users, and therefore reduces the sort of overall cost per user of deploying some of these capabilities that we have. One of the things that we will One of the things that we have, which is part of our mission, is about humanizing work, about how do we make people more effective, more productive, irrespective of where they are, whether they're sitting remote and working in a hybrid environment, or whether they are sitting in the workplace and working closely with their teams. They should all be able to relate to each other and be able to be, able to work in a purposeful manner. One of the things that we had experimented with long back, but then we sort of gave up in the maybe 2020, 21 timeframe, but we're bringing that back now, is looking at some of the things around how does a team feel and how are they doing in terms of their work. And so sentiment analysis is a key area that we believe is going to help project managers and leadership teams on how do you effectively manage people. And so sentiment analysis is one area where we will be introducing newer capabilities. And in the future webinars and sessions, we will certainly share more of those with you. So just wanted to lay that out right now without giving too much details on that. But I hope that it gives you all a general sense of what we have done so far, what's been our sort of history, and therefore what sort of capability we provide. And we'd love to engage with you as you yourselves look at some of these areas that you want to implement in your own workplaces, and hopefully learn from your experience, and have you look at what we are doing and give us your comments and feedback. So with that, I'm going to wind up. We are already past our 8:30 mark as well. So Lindsay, if you don't mind, could you share all? I could actually do that. Let me share my contact slide so that everybody here has an idea of where to contact us if we need to. And hopefully you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, so if you have any questions, follow up, please get in touch with us. You have the details of the people who are were on the panel today. Ram unfortunately could not join, but I'm hoping that he will be there in the next one that we do. This has certainly been a very interesting session for us. We're all very excited about not only sharing our journey, but also just the overall set of things that we are planning in our roadmap. And so I hope that we can bring this panel together multiple times going forward, and really give you a good sense of how we see this evolving and where we will implement that in our own product portfolio. So with that, I'd like to thank all of the people on the session today, and thank you to all of the audience who stayed till the end. I know that we got a little late, but you will get a copy of this copy of this recording very soon, and we hope to see you in the next one as well. Thanks a lot, and have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you all.